All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a good day of trading today. We got a lot to unpack, I guess. I guess we have a lot to talk about with our majors, and then we'll get into the minors. And without any more time being wasted, because we got quite a few to get through, so it's going to take some time. So we want to get it done as fast as possible. So I'm going to try to run through them. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we're going to get this going. So without further ado, we got to go. First up, Bitcoin. Bitcoin pushed down this morning. Looked like it wanted to continue to go lower. And here in the after hours, it's got this fat doji. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow morning when we open up. Are we going to retest this area here and come back down into here? Look for some support at around 8,000, or it's at 88,000. I'm sorry. Or we're going to bounce off the 20-day and go back and retest this high point of our channel that we're currently in, going the blue channel. The red channel we were in for a minute, but we broke out of, but now we're coming back to retest for support, and we'll see what happens if it stays in this channel here above this line here, or is it going to break through and come back down in here to a lower half of this line. And as you can see, that's probably about our 50% from this move here down to here, this line here. Okay, but that's Bitcoin. Next up is Bitcoin USD, and it still looks like it starting to look like this morning is how it looked. Now it's starting to look like how the futures looked this morning. So right, so our futures had that bar this morning. Now it's putting in this bar right now. So look for the doji for this one to show up maybe tomorrow, and then we'll see if our futures are heading, tomorrow also. So if we open up below here and start heading lower, we're going to retest this area here for some support. If that doesn't hold, then we're going for the next area of support, which is down here at around 88. Alright, so we're going to show this now. That's about 97. Okay, so we get below 97, and we're going to come back down and retest this 88 area. So we'll wait and see on the Bitcoin. Next up is oil, and oil is selling off. And drip, our inverse of oil, should be heading up green, getting through its moving averages. Look for some support on oil at around 71, but don't count on it, because you know what they say, drill baby drill means more oil in the market and lower prices. Next up is gold, and gold is got a little bit of a sell-off coming in, putting in this little doji there, little indecision bar, and we'll see what happens come tomorrow morning. But right now, currently in the after hours, it looks like it wants to sell off even further. So look for some support at around 2,720 in here. If that doesn't hold, look for it down here. If that doesn't hold, look out below. We're heading back to our moving averages. Alright, next up is natural gas, and natural gas also is selling off because our oil and whatnot is selling off. Okay, next up is the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ put in a nice big bar going downwards. Now it popped up and opened up with the doji. So if this area doesn't hold on our channel and keep us alive, look for it to come back into here at 20,983. If that doesn't hold, look out below. We're going to come back down into here somewhere, into this channel, and maybe come down here. But we'll have to see what happens here in the next few days. But right now, NASDAQ looking weak, along with all the other majors. Next up is silver, and silver looks like it wants to stay bouncing around in this moving averages here. Our trade winds are trying to act as some support for it, but it looks like it wants to sell as well and come down to about 29 down here. 29,288. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with silver. But silver is currently looking weak also and heading into the moving averages. So if we get below the moving averages, then we're going to head into a bear market, and continue to sell. Um, the Dow pushed up higher, had a nice little green bar pullback here, and opened up here somewhere today, and it's not looking too bad. It hasn't retested this previous high, but it is finding some support here at 44,452. So we have to wait and see what happens with the Dow. If it opens up lower, we still may find some support in here and try to retest this previous high. Next up is corn. And corn's got a nice little pullback, still bullish, but it's pulling back some. And like I said, it has some support in this area here at 478. And it looks like we put a little pointer down in that area, couldn't close below it, and pushed back up for the moving averages for some support. But we're opening up with a little doji, and so we have to see if it turns green and opens up higher, or if it goes red and goes back lower, and try to find some support down in here in this area here at 472. So, but it's still bullish. Corn is still bullish, and I suspect if we do get another red bar, we'll get a green soon and pump back up and try to retest this 494 area. Next up is Apple, and Apple put in a pretty decent bar today, closing that window that it opened up. So we closed our window, so now we're free to head back lower. So keep an eye on Apple. It's got earnings on the 30th, which is in a couple of days from now. So be ready for that. Keep some dry powder for the 30th, because we may get a pop or a drop. But we'll see what happens. But we're definitely in our trade wins. Over here, resistance coming in. So keep an eye on Apple. We may continue to sell on Apple and retest this 214 area for support. Next up is AEM. And gold, not a bad bar for today on gold, but considering all this indecision we had here. But I think gold was still looking kind of like it wanted to pull back some. So yeah, it looks like gold still wants to sell off. So don't get too excited about AEM just yet, because this may go the opposite direction on us. Alright, next up, and it has earnings coming up also, is Affirm. And Affirm continues to sell off. Look for some, it found some support here at 52.97. So keep an eye on that. If you open up lower, look for some support around 50. If that doesn't hold, then look out below. But it is in this channel still, heading downwards. Alright, but we're still in the up bull market, but we're just bearish at the moment. We're bearish in a bull market. Next up is AGI, and AGI had a little pullback today, but didn't break this one here, this bar here. So this bar here is still strong enough to keep us afloat, with the 8 and 9 SMAs coming up to help support. And so far we know it's been respecting it, and so it may be respecting it here too. So maybe we might continue in our uptrend. We ran into some resistance because of this area here was previous resistance. So keep an eye on that with AGM, but it is gold, so we may continue to pull back in it, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Maybe gold might turn around by morning. Currently it's a positive $3.20, so it may keep up the good work. We'll have to see come tomorrow morning. Next up is AMD, and AMD was looking pretty strong up till this today, and took a little drop and came back down into this $115 area where it was support back here. So at least it found some support and didn't continue selling off. Alright, so keep an eye on AMD. It's got earnings coming up as well on the 4th of February. So just be careful with AMD, because we may continue to sell off. It is in a bear market, so AMD may continue to sell off, so be careful with that. Next up is Amazon, and Amazon was selling off, and then it put in a nice big green bar. So that doesn't necessarily mean everything, but it does mean something. It's not the volume wasn't as great as it was in the past back over here, but it was enough to keep it out of the keep it from coming back down here at 219. So that's not a bad bar, and it's respecting the 20-day. So let's see what happens in the next couple of days. If it gets back above this 233 and finds some support, maybe we're going to continue higher. That remains to be seen. But of course, we have earnings coming up on Amazon on the 6th of February, so be careful with that. Next up is ARK. And Bitcoin was selling off this morning, so ARK took a little hit too, but it didn't fall below its moving averages. Found some support at the 20-day. Got rejected as it tried to push higher, but it is still bullish currently, but in this channel, back into this channel, and possibly might want to go lower. Next up is ASLE, and got a little doji, tried to push up higher, but got rejected back in the same area at $6.95. So got a little bit of rejection, so it may pull back some before trying to go higher. And may find some support in this area at around, about $7. So keep an eye on that. If we open up below this doji, look for some support at around $7. Next up is AWK, American Waterworks. Wow, look at that bar American Waterworks popped in. After all that weakness it was showing this morning, it just took off this morning. In the morning, the pre-market, it looked pretty weak. And then it said, nope, we're running for it. And they put in this huge bar right here. And it's back up above. It closed above our 128 area, but we need a full bar to close above it, so we know that that is our support area, and it's respecting it. So keep an eye on that for the next couple of days. Get a bar above and close. Check in for support before going higher. Next up is BITI, inverse of Bitcoin, and had a little pop, but then it put in this little red doji here because of the Bitcoin was selling off this morning, but then it reversed its course and kind of closed up a little bit higher, but not enough to make a red bar, but it was enough to, not enough to make a green bar, but it was enough to keep it from getting into the sell area. So this is the inverse of Bitcoin, of course, or the bear to Bitcoin. BOIL is up next, Bloomberg Natural Gas ETF, and it is selling off because we know natural gas is selling off. Next up is Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat tried to push up, couldn't get above its resistance area in here. It's been resistance for some time now, so close below it, so keep an eye on that. We need a bar to get up and close above it so it can continue higher, but currently it's running into some resistance at this area here of about $4. Alright, next up is Cheesecake Factory, and Cheesecake Factory keeps retesting this previous high of $52. So we need to go above that, and you know the deal, or you know the drill. Alright, so next up is Cat. That's a Caterpillar, and Caterpillar sold off a little bit, got caught by our trade winds, our 8-9 SMA, found some support, so we have to see what happens with Cat tomorrow. If it opens up lower, then it's probably going to continue lower and come back down in here and close these windows that it opened up quite a few of them. Alright, so that's Caterpillar. Next up is Canopy Growth, and Canopy Growth is continuing to sell off. Couldn't find support at the 215, so it hit 199, and it did close below it, but we need a full bar, so we have to see what happens with that. All right, but right now it's in the bear market trying to sell off, and it has earnings coming up on February 7th. Next up, Comcast. Comcast is still trying to push higher. They put in a nice little push. These last 5 days of trading have been pretty decent for Comcast, so keep an eye on that. It's still in the bear market, so don't get too hog wild in it, but if you can keep these bars moving, you can make a nice little trade on a daily movement with Comcast. Next up is Chipotle Mexican Grill. We got a nice push up here, taking out our little red bar here. That almost looks like a bullish harami, right? Bullish harami, yeah. Pregnant woman. But anyway, we got a nice little bar pushing up in here, so we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. If we're going to continue to push higher, get above our moving averages, and continue higher to go over and retest this $66 area. But right now, Chipotle is trying to look like it wants to get back through these moving averages. So keep an eye on the trade winds and see if Chipotle can do it. If it can get above it, then we might be back to being bullish. But currently, we're still trying to become that. So keep an eye on Chipotle. Next up, CenterPoint Energy. And oh, look at that thing right there. CenterPoint Energy put this long old tail in on the 8 and the 20-day SMAs. So that the volume is low on that though, so I don't know if that really means anything. But it does mean that they don't want to close it. So have to be careful with that. But CenterPoint Energy looking still bullish, and looks like it doesn't want to sell off like a lot of the other ones. Next up is corn, and corn, of course, we know is having a little bit of a pullback. Once we get that out of the way and find some support, look for the retest of $20. Next up is CRSR, Corsair Gaming. Found some support at around $8.73. So keep an eye on that. It put in this little doji, so if it opens up higher, then you may want to continue to go back and retest this 963 area. So keep an eye on that. Corsair Gaming. Next up is CSWC, Capital Southwest Corporation, and it continues to close the window that it opened. Now it's regrouping. Got a little doji here and there, 2 dojis in a row. So keep an eye on that. Capital Southwest looks like it can either go either way. All right, because there's some indecision here. So once they make up their mind, we'll see which direction they want to go in. And it also has earnings coming up on the 3rd of February. Next up is DKL. DKL looks like a sell. Careful with that. We got the 20-day coming up to act as some support, so we may catch the 20-day and find some support and retest this 44.22 area. But that's a nice big bar after our indecision bar. We got a nice big sell bar, so be careful with this one. It may want to continue to sell off. All right, and that's DKL, Delic Logistics. Next up is Drip. And Drip is going higher because we know oil is going lower. All right, so keep an eye on oil. Next up is Dust, and Dust is the bear ETF to the gold miners. So gold is kind of selling off currently, so of course that should be going higher. Next up is EXE. Expand Energy, and Expand Energy happened to find some support at 101.27. So let's see if that holds. If it doesn't hold, if we open up lower tomorrow, Then look for the next support at about 96.47. If that doesn't hold, look for 93. If 93 doesn't hold, look for 89. And if 89 doesn't hold, look for us to shut that window that it opened at 87.15 before heading higher. Next up is Fastly. And Fastly put in a fat doji today after getting a sell bar, but it got caught by its moving averages. This window it had opened has been reconciled. So keep an eye on Fastly, see if it wants to find some support and continue higher, or wants to come back down here and head lower. But right now, Fastly is somewhat bullish, and we have to wait and see what happens here later on in the next couple of days. See if we're going to go higher to retest this $12 area. Next up is GBTC, and it's finding some support at 79. We have to wait and see if it holds. We know Bitcoin is looking kind of weak at the moment. Oh, wait a minute. Bitcoin is looking kind of strong at the moment. So we'll have to see what happens with that. You may get a nice push higher in Bitcoin come tomorrow morning. But we won't know till then. But right now, it's not looking too bad. Where was I? Dust. Alright, so we were down here in Grayscale. Sorry. And so Grayscale is looking not so bad. It might want to continue to go higher and retest this previous high of 86.11. We have to wait and see come morning. Next up is GME. GameStop. And GameStop put in this gravestone doji. Look up when it opens up. If it opens up lower, and we're going to retest this area here at 25.88. If that doesn't hold, we're getting into our trade winds. If our trade winds don't keep us afloat, then we're heading back down to $20. So keep an eye on GameStop. Be careful with this one. Next up is Google. And Google had a nice little sell-off today. Most of our communication services pulled back quite a bit today. So that's just kind of, maybe it's just what we're happening right now. We're taking profits on communication services, and we'll build them back up as we go further into the year. But currently it's looking a little bit weak. Still in a bullish market though, but Alphabet looks kind of weak at the moment. Like it needs to check back in, but we're heading higher. Alright, next up is Gush. And Gush is selling off. And we know that it should be because oil is selling off, right? So that's just natural. Alright, because this is the bull, and we know oil's looking bearish. So keep an eye on that one. It may be coming back down here to look for some support here down here at 24.56. If it does come all the way back down into here. So we have to wait and see what happens. But our next line of support is about down here at 24.56. Alright, or maybe in this area here. Alright, but right now Gush is getting into a bearish market. Next up is JDST. And let's see, did I talk about drip? Yeah, because it started to look bullish heading up into our trade winds. Alright, so inverse of oil stocks drip. Alright, where was I? Gush selling off. Next up is JDST. Junior Gold Miners bear ETF and bear, so it should be going higher. We had a doji here, and then we put in this bar here. So yeah, keep an eye on gold, see what happens with the JDST. Keep an eye on that and see if we're gonna open up higher with this fat doji. But we know we got moving averages coming over to act as resistance, so we gotta have to wait and see what happens with the gold market. But currently back here, it looked like it wanted to sell, but just a few minutes ago now, it's starting to look like it's trying to be bullish. So that's gold. Next up is LABD, Direction Biotech Bear ETF. Alright, and the Biotech Bear ETF looks like it's selling off, which means our biotech should be going higher. Well, they tried to push higher but got forced back down, so but we're still bearish on the S&P Biotech Bull 3X. So we have to wait and see what happens with that tomorrow. If we open up higher, if we want to go back higher to retest these moving averages up here, or trade winds overhead, and see if we can get through those. All right, and the inverse of that, or the bear of that, would continue to go lower down here if the other one goes higher. Alright, but currently it's stuck in the trade winds, trying to find some footing so it can do whatever it's going to do. But currently it looks like it's this bear is going to be bullish for a little while longer. Alright, next up is LAC. And Lithium Americas Corp had a nice little pullback today, 2-bar pullback the last 2 days. Finding some support with the 150 simple moving average, so if it can hold on and start pushing higher, then we may be okay. If not, then look for $2.90 for support, and if that don't hold, look out below. Next up is Lake, LAKE, and we had a sell-off. Had a window opened up here. Alright, so with that window open, alright, so close that window and head back down. Or close that window and keep going higher. And that's got a nice little distance between us. That's about our midpoint. Alright, from our previous high. Okay, so let's see what happens with this one. It was going to try to close that window before either going higher or going back lower. Alright, so that's Lake. Next up, Microsoft. And Microsoft put in a nice fat bar, but it did gap down to do it. So we have to wait and see what happens. It's stuck in our trade winds right now, so it is going to want to continue going higher. Or is it going to put in a nice red bar to take out that red bar and continue lower? So only time will tell with Microsoft, but currently it's still in an uptrend. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Alright. Next up, MSTR MicroStrategy. And MicroStrategy didn't get hit as hard as a lot of the other ones today, but it did sell off a little bit. So keep an eye on that. We need to stay above 286 if we're going to stay safe. If we don't, that doesn't save us, then trade winds might help us. If they don't help us, then look out below. Next up is Netflix. And Netflix had a big old fire going in here. I think I said fire. That looks like a bullish around me there too. Anyway, I gotta say fire. Anyway, Next up is Netflix, and Netflix put in this little doji right here, so keep an eye on that one. If we open up lower, then it's gonna probably want to blow through here and come back down in here for some support, or if or it may just want to continue higher and retest this 999 area before either going higher or selling off. But be careful with Netflix because it does have this window open and it does need to be reconciled. All right, at some point. Next up. All right, next up is NGD, New Gold Inc. And it's a nice red bar. Couldn't sell off completely, but we know gold is struggling, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Next up, Nvidia, and Nvidia took a hit today. Keep an eye on Nvidia. If we open up below 118 tomorrow, look out below. And we'll be heading into a bearish market. Next up, OSS, One Stop. One Stop was looking so nice. Now it's looking so weak. We have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. We open up lower tomorrow, then look out below. We come back down into this $2.87 area. All right, so keep an eye on that. Next up is Oxy, and Oxy is heading into a bear market. Oh, it was already in a bear market, so it's continuing to sell off. So keep an eye on Oxy. It's just looking bearish at the moment. And Drill Baby Drill ain't helping it none. Next up is Children's Place, and it's still consolidating down here at around 1013. So keep an eye on that. Next up is Qualcomm. Qualcomm took a hit today. Nice big red bar here, putting in a nice big tail hammer. I don't know if this is gonna. It does look like it wants to find some support here in this area 168. So.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Could you restate the question?
Sorry about that. So yeah, keep an eye on Qualcomm. Find some support at 168, and then we want to repush to retest this 176 and go higher. All right, next up is Rocket Lab, and our Rocket Lab Fat Doji may come back, find some support at 27 before retesting this 33 area, but currently it's looking bullish. It does have this window open, so be careful with that. And it's out of this brief channel that it was putting in. Didn't last very long. Okay, so all right, Rocket Lab needs to find some support at 237, $27.34. If that doesn't hold, look for some support back down here around 21. But currently it's bullish, so watch out. Make sure we don't want to come back and close this window. But we find some support in this area, retest this high, and continue higher. That's Rocket Lab. What's up next is RTX, and that's the RTX Corporation. And it's starting to sell off a little bit. Ran into the previous high and couldn't get above it at 128. So we put in a little bit of a sell, so keep an eye on that one. We still have our moving averages. It's still in the bullish market, so expect a little pullback, but not much before trying to retest that high. Next up is RUT, the Russell, and the Russell pulled back a little bit, but it does have a window open. So if we open up below this doji, come back in here, then we're probably going to try to close that window before going higher. Alright, so that's the Russell. Next up is SDOW, the inverse of the Dow, and it's selling off because we know the Dow is going higher. So we have to wait and see what happens with that. Next up is SG Sweet Green. Sweet Green found a bottom, but it's in a bear market at the moment. So keep an eye on that. If it keeps selling off, we may want to finish closing this window. Excuse me. Look for Sweet Green to come back down in here and finish closing this window, reconciling that before going higher. So we need to come down in here and close this window since we're so close. Alright, on Sweet Green. Next up is SoFi. And SoFi is took a hit, gap down, put in a nice little doji with a long tail on it. So look for SoFi to come back down and retest this $14 area for support. If that doesn't work, then the next stop is 11 bucks. If that doesn't work, then look for it to get back into our trade winds. If our trade winds can't support it, then look out below. Next up is Square. Losing my charts. Come on, Square. Let's try this one. Alright. Let's try Square again. And nothing. So Square has to think a little bit. Alright. So let's see. Sempra Energy. Fell back into our trade winds. Put in a nice little tail here. So with some good volume. So if we can open up green with a nice volume bar, go ahead and higher, we may go back and retest this $68 or $88 area. So keep an eye on Sempra Energy. It's trying to look bullish. Next up, T-Mobile Security. T-Mobile US Inc. Found some support at about 216, trying to go higher. Alright, so keep an eye on T-Mobile. Right now it looks bullish. After hours it took a pretty good hit and fell back somewhere down in here somewhere, but that's alright. Next up is Tesla. And Tesla got to sell. Put in the doji. If we open up lower than that doji, look out below on Tesla. Alright, next up is T-Tech. And T-Tech, the last 2 days, or the last 3 days, been selling off, put in the fat doji today. So if we open up below that, then look out below. If we don't, then we may find some support, and then we'll go back up to retest. Alright, so that's T-Tech. Opens up below. If we can't support here at 37, and try to support here at 36. If that doesn't work, look out below. Next up is Texas Roadhouse. And Texas Roadhouse has been consolidating in this area. Put in a nice bar here. Tried to sell off into our moving averages, and the moving averages held it. And then it popped back up to this nice bar. So we open up green and start trying to push up through here, through this support. We can get that, then look out for a retest of 206, and that's about a $16 move. No, $20 move. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Then we got UAL, which is United Airlines. And United Airlines is right now looking kind of bullish. Had a nice little 2-bar pullback. Now it's starting to consolidate a little bit. So let's see what happens if we can consolidate in this area before retesting that 116. Alright, so keep an eye on United Airlines. Right now it's in a bullish market. Next up is VSTM or Veristim. And Veristim put in this doji here, so we open up lower, look out, we may come back down and retest this $5 area. If we open up higher, retest of this $6 area, but we got to get through it and get above it and make sure it supports us before going higher. Alright, so be careful with Veristim. And that's it, folks. We made it. We did it. We are successful with it. Hope by now you've already liked and subscribed. I hope you hit the notification bell, and I hope you got some good information out of this. We're gonna wait and see what happens come tomorrow, And tomorrow should be, um, you know, exciting day in the markets because, in my opinion, today wasn't, a whole lot. You know. So let's see if tomorrow it gets more exciting than today was. All right. So that's all I got. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be careful out there. These markets are crazy.